Men and women of the Air Force gathered together in Proctor yesterday to honor the bravery of those who served before them. The local Air Force members commemorated the Jimmy Doolittle raid on Tokyo at VFW Post 137 in Proctor. The raid was named after one of the 80 volunteers who flew the Air Force bombers on the first ever one-way mission to bomb Tokyo on April 18, 1942, that leading pilot being Jimmy Doolittle. Since the raid, Air Force members have gathered together each year to honor those brothers lost in that mission, commemorating all 80 Doolittle raiders, wrapping up with a toast, a specific tradition when commemorating the raid.
You know, it's kind of cliche, but freedom isn't free, and these young men who participated in this very daring raid gave their futures so we could have our present.
The 30-minute ceremony also included the posting of the colors and a brief historical video on the raid.